just get one more point than the other team. Get at least one more point than the opposition. And that is really the one great thing you can say about Bedlam for the Sooners. 48-47, a game that lasted about 4 hours long, a game that saw a ton of yardage on both sides. I think Oklahoma State had over 600 yards, and Oklahoma had over 700. By the way, for the Sooners, a fourth straight game that they've amassed over 300 yards in rushing. So the running game, despite being as well, primarily with the play of Kennedy Brooks, who had a huge game in a game in which we already knew no Ronnie Anderson, no Marcellia Sutton, but also, too, no T.J. Pleasure. So you've only got 2 scholarship running backs and available in Trey Sermon, despite his nice start. Yeah, I definitely felt like joining Elizabeth, or, I'm going to join Elizabeth in heaven. Yeah, thanks, Zach. Felt like I was going to have a Fred Sanford from Sanford, so I'm going to have a heart attack, the big one. These games are provoking heart attacks. But getting back to what I was talking about, Sermon got off to a nice start, but then it was apparent that he was not 100%. So, Kennedy Brooks had to carry a good chunk of the load. The offensive line, again, opening holes against that Cowboy defense. And I thought the play of Kennedy Brooks was tremendous and one of the big factors in the Sooner eking out a victory. And have you noticed something before we break down Bedlam even further? Have you noticed that, it was a heck of a game, Navy, but I'm telling you, in my heart, I don't know how much more I can take these kind of games. And it makes me wonder what life's going to be like on November 23rd when they play at West Virginia. But we'll talk more about that in a second. But if you know something about Bedlam, when Oklahoma State is a big underdog, okay, and they seem to play the best. They seem to get out their best. 2001, more than a 20-point underdog. Remember that year, Rashawn Woods with the game-winning touchdown. O.S.U. prevents Oklahoma from getting to the Big 12 championship and possibly playing for another national title. And again, 4 years ago, Cowboys, again, were not in Big 12 contention, but the Tyreek Hill punt return forcing overtime, and OSU winning again as a 20-point underdog. And by that year, and in 2001, the Cowboys won both games with a first-year starting quarterback. Josh Fields in 2001, and, of course, 2014, Mason Rudolph, as Mike Gundy pulled his red shirt late into the season, and it paid off big time. Taylor Cornell, quarterback that I thought, even though he was a good athlete, I didn't think he was a great downhill or downfield thrower. And because of the fact that he had time to throw, and because of the fact that the Sooner corners don't know how to play physical and love to give up space, for Trey Norwood, he was getting burnt constantly in that first half. But we'll talk more about the defense later. But as you can tell, if there is a Big 12 championship at stake or more, Oklahoma State doesn't win these games. It's when they're a big underdog, especially playing in Norman, where they flirt with victory or win. And you commend Oklahoma State for the terrific effort. This was the same Oklahoma State team that got their asses kicked by Kansas State, that got their asses kicked by Texas Tech, and lost at Baylor. 3 teams that Oklahoma handled. In the case of Kansas State and Baylor, it wasn't even a contest when Oklahoma played them. But the Cowboys, as a 21-point underdog on Saturday, played with the mentality of a winner. And you give Mike Gundy and that staff credit for doing that. But fine line between winning and losing, and Bedlam has been OU's baby for a long time, now 88-18 with a few ties mixed in against the Pokes. Oklahoma owns the rivalry, and it doesn't matter if you win by 1 or you win by 500. It's a victory, but the Sooners really had to fight for it. Offensively, the running game, again, a big, big reason why. That play call, which I will break down in a second, because that was a head-scratcher as well in the third quarter. The Sooners' ground game made all the difference in the world, and you give the Sooners credit because, again, they were so thin at running back. They really had to depend on Kennedy Brooks quite a bit. You did see Sermon come into the game, but only on certain situations. And it was Brooks who had a big game. Kyler Murray, once again, very dependable, showing off his sensational arm, his athletic skills, and a big second half, too, for Hollywood Brown as well. So the Sooner passing attack massive, well over 300 yards through the air. And again, the Sooner rushing attack, well over 300 yards. It's the fourth straight time that they've been able to accomplish that feat. So hats off to the Sooners. A few things about the offense that are worth pointing out that weren't exactly on the positive side. I think, number one, they were vulnerable in the second half in pass protecting Kyler Murray. The first half, Oklahoma State, remember, the Cowboys lead the country in sacks, 3.8 per game in the first half, but in the second half, pressure started to take chances, and it was paying off for the Cowboys. So you saw, I think that the Cowboys had, 3 or 4 sacks in the second half, so that was a bit alarming. And then the other thing about the offense, again, I might sound like I'm nitpicking, but these are things to point out because against West Virginia in a couple of weeks, the Sooners have got to get these things worked out. Now, penalties, again, the Sooners just hurting themselves with penalties, giving themselves, there were a couple of penalties that they had in the red zone that could have resulted into touchdowns, instead resulted into field goal instead. Try wiping my lens off. Okay, I'll definitely have to make that adjustment. Thanks, man. Seems fogged up. Yeah, I've got this light in the background, and that might be playing a role in it. So my apologies for that. But anywho, there is penalties prevented Oklahoma from scoring even more. The penalty, though, that Cody Ford got in the fourth quarter was bullshit. And I think we know that. 41-41, you're in the red zone, you're about to drive, and then, what the heck happens? Cody Ford gets called for holding, and it clearly wasn't. I do not understand that, okay? Cody Ford didn't hold from watching the replay, and that hurt Oklahoma because they had to put it back to Oklahoma State eventually. So I think I'll see if I can make any adjustments here. Yeah, and help much more, but going live right now. The Sooners Tech had issues yesterday in both cases that could have very well have costed them the ball game. Decision making by Lincoln Riley wasn't always the best, but by and large it was good. But the clock management before halftime to try to get a score before half, that was a bit of they didn't manage at all, and they ended up running out of time as Murray couldn't. Okay, a little bit of a lag there, but anyway, yeah, the officiating this year has been questionable at fourth, and I think 11 from 35 or 38. In that case, just punt the ball, because at that point, if you can pin Oklahoma State inside the 10 or inside the 5, the play calling might have been a little bit different for Mike Gundy in that situation with the crowd noise in the end zone. Instead, they decided to go for it on 4th and 11. I mean, this isn't Madden football. I mean, when you're playing a video game, this is real life. This is college football. A lot at stake, and a little bit boneheaded. Now, talking about have to once again trying to find about Neville Gallimore. That injury in the fourth quarter looked to me kind of very old. Had to be helped off the field too. So we'll have to play the way it doesn't look good for him, at least at the point that it happened. The corners did that, Motley, but especially not too much against Tylan Wallace. My gosh. Taylor Cornelius is not a terrific quarterback. He's okay, but he's not good. But he had over 500 yards passing, okay? And Tylan Wallace had over 200 yards receiving. The Sooners are just not physical at the corners. They just can't cover. Way too much separation, and it was like pitch and catch from Cornelius to Wallace or to Tyron Johnson or to Dylan Stoner. All three just burnt the Sooner secondary like crazy. And, I feel sorry for the Sooner offense because the first 3 possessions, they had touchdowns, but the Cowboys kept matching them time and time again. And the most frustrating part for the Sooner defense was 3rd down. I mean, let's all in on 3rd down. Oklahoma State, I think, was 10 of 16 or 10 of 17 on 3rd down. And this wasn't like 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2 or 3rd and inches. most of those third downs were third and longs, okay? Sometimes it was third and at least 10 yards to go, and you can't come up with a stop. You can't get your asses off the field and make a play. It didn't matter if Oklahoma State threw a screen or if they were throwing downfield. They were getting what they wanted, keeping the chains moving, eventually resulting in the touchdowns. We mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. The Sooners are lucky that Alan Bowman, the Tech quarterback, did not play in the second half because of injury. Here's about, and yeah, I wonder why they didn't start Trey Brown. It's time to start Trey Brown at the corner. It's time to start him. You can't have Norwood out there to start the game because, you know, Yurcich, the Oklahoma State offensive coordinator, knew where to go. And he knew that the corners were not going to provide much of a fight. There was way too much distance, way too much. And this was the big thing I was yelling at the television screen. You know, why is there so much it's not aggressive? And Cornelius, despite throwing for 500 yards, he missed some passes too. He had some one. He had a wide one and actually threw the ball. But I mentioned it last week. You're lucky if you're a Sooner fan that Oklahoma State has issues with place kicking, missing a relatively makeable field goal in the game, and then, of course, the missed extra point with the game tied at 41. With all apologies to Ace Ventura, laces out. 47, Oklahoma State's got the lead cut to 1. About a minute to go, Gundy decided to roll the dice. And if you want to analyze why he went for the 2 rather than try to kick the extra point and go to overtime, there are several possibilities for this. Number one, he didn't like the way his defense was playing, and in overtime on the road, I don't think he liked his chances in overtime. I think number 2, you know, may have saw the success that Dana Holgorsen has in that same situation. You got the defense for Oklahoma who had played horrible. You got them on their heels. In that situation, take your chances. You need 3 yards, and they could have run it up the middle, and they could have scored because Chuba Hubbard, you know, coming in for Justice Hill, who had injury issues in the game, they could have very well have scored off that 2-point conversion if they had just kept it on the ground. And another possibility, I don't think Gundy had much confidence at all in his. I do not think that Gundy had much confidence whatsoever in the place kicking. All right. Because they had missed an extra point, they had missed a field goal, so it was no guarantee, it was no gimme that the Cowboys were going to tie it at 48. So I don't blame Gundy for going for it. And actually, the 2-point conversion, he was open. The ball was not thrown to the outside of the receiver. He's trying to make, you know, Cornelius was trying to make the throw on the run, going toward the run. And was off. It was actually around the final minute of the clock. So winning beats losing. There's a great difference between winning and losing. So the Sooners are 9-1 for at least another week, and of course they'll be 10-1 after Kansas next week with 30 kickoff. It's going to be a night game, thank goodness. I hate early kickoffs. I absolutely despise them. So it's going to be a primetime kickoff on Fox 6:30 between the Sooners, the final home game of the year, against Kansas, who's a little bit better, but again, not expecting much of a contest at all. State, they're going to have to get a victory these final 2 weeks just to get to bowl eligibility. So that's going to be a big question mark for them. They got West Virginia coming up next week. I'm not expecting a win there. They might have to win at T.C.U. just to get the 6 wins. And yeah, got to get that pizza for the next game. Make mine a Ken's Pizza. Or, you know what, Zach? Godfathers. I loved Godfathers back in the day. Do it. Anyway, but getting back to the game itself, the Sooners survive the penalties. They survive horrific defensive play. They do get a critical fumble recovery when the game was tied at 41 and the Cowboys looked like they were going to go in for the go-ahead touchdown, but get the fumble recovery. The Sooner, and by the way, I think the Sooners need to make wholesale adjustments on defense after this year. But it also, too, has to be a change in personnel, but a change in philosophy as well. They got to be more aggressive, playing this laid-back style. And with Ruffin McNeil and I don't completely blame McNeil for this defense looking the way it does. This was Mike Stoops' defense, and you just can't make this defense from where they were to being elite in just a few weeks, especially in the Big 12. That's impossible. That just is. I would rather this defense carry a very aggressive style and get burned at times than to just play conventional basic and get torched almost every possession. I get tired of watching this defense. I really, really do. I get tired of watching them because you kind of know what's going to happen. But I said this last week, and as I wrap up this show, I'm going to say it again. The Sooners are just going to have to win. It's going to have to be like 49. 45 too, because you cannot count on Oklahoma's defense to win games. You can't do it. It's just not going to happen. And I would be shocked. I would be shocked big time if come the 2019 season, if this defensive coaching staff remains intact. I cannot see it happening for Lincoln Riley's sake, for the sake of the program, and to remain a national championship contender in this way, because, you know, something you think it can't get any worse. Oh, yes, it can. It can get worse. But you know what? They were on the ropes, found a way to win. That's all I give a damn about for right now. They get the 1-point victory. Kansas coming up Saturday. But that game looming large the day after Turkey Day, 23rd against West Virginia, it's got me very concerned. It's got me nervous. And right now, if I were to pick one team or another, I'd probably say West Virginia playing at home. And West Virginia's offense is even more talented than the offense that you saw yesterday from Mike Gundy's squad, who played an admirable game. But Sooners get the win. And don't forget my 3 picks coming up later this week. The Coin and I will pick 3 games against the spread. I'll have a weekly matchup show between the Sooners and Jayhawks. Kansas fought hard yesterday, but lost a close one against arch rival Kansas State. Kansas is a little bit better, but still, this should not be much of a contest coming up this week. Boomer Sooner, everybody, and we will see you later on this very web page. Thanks for your patience for waiting for this show, and we'll see you next time.